Hi guys, it's Gilly Hunt here today with my A to Z guide to Stampin' Up products, and we're on to the letter R for re-inkers. So let's start with the very fundamental question. What is a re-inker? Well, re-inkers are little bottles. Here's some of them. Little bottles filled with ink, and it's the same dye-based ink as we have on our pads. So any pad that you buy from Stampin' Up will have the same colour. So this is Pool Party and this is Pool Party, and that allows me, when my Pool Party ink pad gets dry, and this is one of my older ones, so it is a little bit dry, it allows me to re-ink or add ink to my ink pad. And you do it in a very simple manner, so let's just show you. I don't need very much on this one because it's not too dry. You simply dot it across your pad. Okay, and in fact you can see where it's soaking in. It's soaking in the middle where it's got less, where it's got drier, sorry. And then I take one of our palette knives, but you could use the back of a credit card, you could use anything that's got an edge, like a ruler maybe, or something like this, but something that's got a nice straight firm edge, and you just move the ink across your pad to make sure it's thoroughly dispersed. Okay, now if your pad has got particularly dry, you might also want to do some in this direction. I don't want to put too much on mine because mine isn't too dry, but it would depend on how dry your pad was. And you just keep moving across. Now what I would suggest is don't wait until your ink pads have got totally dry, because that way it takes a while and you don't get the ink dispersing quite as well. It's best to do it when they start to feel a little bit drier, and you just add a little bit. If by some chance you get a bit carried away and you squeeze too much in, you can always move any excess ink across your pad to the end and then just blot it with a tissue. Okay, but that's very wasteful, so we obviously don't want to get into that position. But the biggest thing is to try and disperse the ink evenly across your surface. Okay, now if I now leave that to sit flat as usual, what will happen is that ink will gradually just sink and soak into all the other areas, and it will gradually become a nice, nicely, smoothly covered. So that's the basic re-inker, and that's what it's used for. But there are so many more wonderful things you can do with a re-inker. So here we go. You can buy ink spots. We call them uninked stamping spots, and they're £8.25 for 5, so they're really cheap, and they come like this. Oops. In a packet of 5, and this is what they look like, just a little felt on top of a little foamy mat, and that means you can soak that with ink, and I'm going to show you that in a moment, and you can create your own little small stamping spots. Now why would you want a little small one rather than buying the big ones? Well, for a number of reasons. One is that, for example, things like the Stamparatus, where sometimes you get the ink on the plates a lot, these little tiny pads are much more controllable, but they're also very, very good for other things, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But before I do that, they have one downfall, I think. It's fine if you're going to live your life beautifully tidily, squeezing this lid on meticulously and putting it flat on your shelf every single time you use it. But these don't have a click lid like the bigger ink pads. They're nice and tight. Look, they're not loose and floppy like some I've seen before, But I like to take mine away with me, I like to take it to events, and also I like to be sure it's sealed. So I put a band around them to start with, and then I found that when they're in amongst others, the bands fall off. So here's a little, just a little quick tip from me. Get yourself a metal skewer or something similar to this. You know, the kebab skewers, something similar to that. You can have little tiny ones or big ones, doesn't matter. And stick it over your gas cooker or a gas fire or anything like a candle. And this is where the health warning comes in. Be careful, don't burn yourself, be sensible. These videos are for adults, so please act like a sensible adult. Heat up your metal until it is red, 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 red hot, and then just sizzle. Pop it down like that across the bottom of your... and what you'll do is you will cut yourself a nice, neat little channel. You can see it best on that end there. But it cuts you just a nice little channel, which means that when you put your band round, you can pop the band into the channel, okay, like that. Wrap it round a couple of times, and these are just hair bobbles, but you could use elastic band, whatever you like. But that little channel just helps hold that in place, and now that's can be popped in my bag, it can be knocked about, and I'm not going to lose the seal. So there we go. There's a little tip from me, but this is how we ink them up. So let's take this one because it's already easy to get, and we do it in just the same way. What we do is we just drop a few ink dots across. Okay, backwards and forwards, so I'm going in both directions, up and down, and I'm trying to keep a nice even squeeze. So rather than squeezing bits and squeezing bits, I'm just trying to keep it evenly squeezed. That way it gradually soaks in. Now I would need to leave that just for a few seconds or so to soak in, and look, at the moment that's only soaking the top layer. So I need to decide whether I want to use this just once or twice for a quick stamp for one thing, or whether I want this in the long term to become a, what is this one? Oh, I can't tell. There we go, pool party. Or whether I want this to become a pool party pad. Now, if I do want it to become a pool party pad, then I need to continue. Okay, and I need to just gradually let it soak backwards and forwards. A nice even coating. Backwards and forwards, and I might just go a little bit round and round. Making sure I'm getting to the absolutely to the edges. Now can you see that's beginning to soak further in and further down, and I want to just keep going until what I see along the edges, and I'm not going to do it because it'll take forever, but what I need to do is that along the edges, here's one I've done before, I get the colour right the way down to the base. So I'm waiting for that colour to soak right down to the base. Now the only thing to do is to stop between squishing the ink in, because it does just take a little while to soak down. So don't be thinking, oh, it's not filling up, it's not filling up. It is, and what you certainly don't want to do is over soak it. It's not a problem, it just wastes ink, that's all. Okay, so I've said that that's how we re-ink something. But re-inking isn't the only thing we can do with re-inkers. I think one of the most fabulous things you can do with re-inkers is to create your own colours. Stampin' Up are fabulous. They give you 50-something colours, absolutely fabulous. But bet your bottom dollar there'll always be a moment where you go, oh yeah, but I wanted something just a tiny bit more bluey, or a little bit more yellowy, or a little bit more this or that. So this is where every time you go to a hotel, collect the little tiny screw bottles. This is a little shampoo bottle from a hotel. Or go onto the internet and buy yourself a set of little tiny bottles. So you can do that. But I'm a cheapskate, so I always think, oh, good, those are screw top bottles. I love those. So this is what I do, is I use these little tiny ones and I make my own colours. This is a sort of pea greeny yellow. In fact, I made it before we had either the lemon lime twist or the granny apple green, and it's a kind of hybrid between those, slightly more mustardy. I've put a few splotches on the outside so I can see what colour it is, and I've written here that it's Daffodil Delight and Pool Party, so I know what it was a mixture of. So in fact, into that bottle I put a few drops of Daffodil Delight and a few drops of Pool Party until I got the colour I wanted. So I can create that colour. Here's another one that I've done. This particular pad that I showed you earlier on, I've called Rose Sugar, and this is what I normally do with the pads. I put rose sugar on it. I've called it Rose Sugar because it's somewhere between Rose Red and Sweet Sugar Plum, in the days when those two were colours that we had. I wanted something that was paler than Rich Raspberry and more purpley than Melon Mambo. So I put those two together, and I then used these colours and these colours to mix together to find the right blend to get my rose sugar. And then of course you can always add some extra water if you want it to be a little paler. I don't suggest you use too much water because that then just makes it a bit of a weak mix. It's better to use paler colours if you want pale in the first place. But because it's in a little screw bottle, you can shake it up like mad, you can disperse all the colours together, and then you can tip it out onto your pads to use. So this one was Rose Sugar. And don't you agree? That's a nice addition to those four. That makes the fifth in that lovely collection of those rosy, purpley pinks. And it just adds that extra thing for you. Okay, what else can you do? Well, you can, let me just grab a piece of paper. You can pop it into a aqua or water brush. No, sorry, this is not a water brush or an aqua brush. I am going to do that in a minute, and here it is ready on the side, but this is actually a spray. Oh dear, it's a spritz bottle, a spray bottle, and all I've done is put water, because remember these are dye-based re-inkers, so they can be mixed with water. I've added water, and I've added a few drops of a red, and I've give it a good shake before I use it to make sure all the water and the dye is mixed up. And I now have a spritz, which will spritz me a lovely pinky red. So fabulous for backgrounds, fantastic for spraying larger areas. But I can have that in any colour I want. I can have it in the fixed colours of the Stampin' Up inks, but I can also mix my own colours by combining different things. So that's one thing you can do with it. Now, I did say you can add it to water, and you can use it in your aqua brushes. So here's what we do. We just unscrew the top. We put some water in first, and in fact I've probably put a little bit too much in there, so let's just tip a little bit away. Okay, I want room to be able to put my dye in, but I also want room to be able to give it a good shake, and I hadn't let enough room to give it a good shake. So what colour shall we go for? Oh, let's go back for this one again. Okay, and all I do is I pop the top in, and I allow it just to squeeze one little drop. And depending on how dark or light I want it, I can continue to do that as much as I like. I screw my lid on. I do suggest you put the top on. You don't have to, but when you're shaking, you never know what's going to come out. Okay, and here goes. as I use this, I'm just going to give it a little squeeze onto to get it started. Here we go. And off I go, and I've now got a very lovely pale colour to do skies or whatever in the pale blue. And if I wanted it a little bit darker, I just add a few more drops, because I think I've probably made that a little bit pale, so let's just add a few more drops. We do want it to look like a colour, not just nothing in particular. So I just add another little bit. And the great thing with these is you can literally add as much or as little as you like, and you can make some great ombre effects too by starting with just one drop and then adding another drop, adding another drop, adding another drop. And I'm just using this on copy paper, so it's looking a bit okay. So here we go, we've gone darker, and we can get some lovely effective backgrounds. What else can we do? Well, here's another thought. One of the other things that I love to play with is pastes, and we sell pastes in the catalogue. Don't forget, everything here can be bought at gillyhunt.com. So pastes and all of the tools and equipment can also be bought in my shop. So here we go, we just grab some paste. Oops. Now my paste has been around a bit, so it's a little bit dry, so I'm just going to give it a squish up and down to get it re-energized, because it's gone a bit dry. Here we go, there we are. So let's have a go at adding some ink to that. So here's my, okay, and I'm going to add 2 or 3 drops because I actually would like this to be a little bit darker. Okay, and all I'm going to do is just smush it about, a bit like butter, or I don't know, making something with cream. It's a bit like cream cheese, really. I don't suggest you use cream cheese, it would smell gross. Okay, so here we go, this is our paste. And the great thing is, not only will it work beautifully on brand new paste, but if, like me, you've got a tin of paste that's been hanging around a little while and it's got a little bit dry, the wonderful thing is by adding the extra dye, it just sort of reactivates it. Can you see how it's gone a lot smoother? Now I've got a lovely deep red here. So let's have a bit of fun and let's have a little go-to project, little tiny project. Here you go, I've got my little, I'm going to cut three little holes. Okay, using my little gun. And I'm going to use my paste, and I'm going to use those little holes as a mask. And of course we sell masks of all kinds of lovely masks in the catalogue, so you can always use our masks, but I just wanted 3 little dots like that. And you're thinking, what are those 3 little dots going to be? Well, I'm going to add, with my silver pen, just a few little extras. Okay, Merry Christmas. And I now have 3 lovely little berries, really nice 3-dimensional great berries. And that's just one of the simple things you can do. You can mask with your paste, but not only that, you can now have paste in any of the Stampin' Up colours and any other colours you wish to create. Now I could make this a very, very long video, and I'm not going to today. Just for once I'm going to be restrained, but I'm going to mention that in the next few weeks or so keep your eyes open over the next few weeks, it won't be necessarily straight away all of them, I'm going to do some more YouTube videos, and they're going to be making particular cards, so little projects like that. And I'm going to be using the re-ink technique, so I'm going to do some shaving foam marbling, I'm going to do some smooshing, die cutting. I'm going to use re-inkers with rock salt. I'm going to use flooded heat embossed images to make stained glass image effects. I'm going to show you how to do baby wipe swipes. Oh, I put baby whip. That should say baby wipe. Shall we just add a little E? Oops. How about that? Baby wipe stripes and dip dye effects using tissue papers and the like. So look out for my other YouTube videos because over the next few whiles I'm going to start to use some of the re-inking in those, and that will help you understand how they work. So rather than doing a technique now, look out for those. And I hope that you'll understand that re-inkers are not just for re-inking, but they are for many, many lovely, wonderful effects. Don't forget, www.gillyhunt.com is where you go to do your shopping, please, because that helps me to be able to continue doing all of these tutorials. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.